The pillar of fire behind her shot straight into the sky, illuminating an entire fortress. Shaoling had never been listed among the 10 ferocious beasts, so no one had officially ranked her in the Misty Mountains. But after today's battle, the world would know the true extent of her strength. As she burned with terrifying intensity, her skin began to change. It crackled with a sizzling sound. Turning red and black like molten metal, even her face was now covered with bright patterns, her human features obscured, yet her long hair flowed freely, and her clothes remained untouched by the flames. Proof of her near-perfect control over fire. The group of superhumans were seeing this form for the first time, and all they could do was gape in stunned silence. No one had anything to say except, "Her whole body is on fire." More accurately, no superhumans on Blue Star had ever dared to challenge Shaoling, which is why they now had the rare chance to witness her true power. After a brief transformation, she suddenly looked up at the god and let out a slight chuckle. Her expression after transforming gave the more timid ones goosebumps instantly. As for the so-called god of birth and nourishment, he didn't get goosebumps. He didn't have skin like that. But every one of his senses was blaring alarm bells, telling him something was very wrong. In a flash, Shaoling's form was swallowed by a sea of flames. Only the heavens knew what she was planning. Suddenly, someone from the group of superhumans shouted from behind, "Everyone, fall back!" It was Long Tingwei, calling out to the fighters still engaged behind them. Where dust was thick in the air, the superhuman troops were locked in an intense battle against the ferocious beasts. Every one of them was battered and bruised, and the beasts kept pouring in without end. Still, they heard Long Tingwei's call. No matter what they were doing at the time, stop everything now. If you don't want to die here, then run now. Truly a leader, even though he didn't know exactly what Shaoling was going to unleash, he already understood one thing: none of the superhumans here would be able to withstand it. Without another word, everyone broke off from their fight with the beasts and sprinted in every direction, trying to get as far away as possible. The god of birth and nourishment could only watch as they all fled, leaving only one human girl standing to face him. He opened his mouth and sneered, "Look at them run, cowards! All afraid of dying at my hands." Shaoling, focusing every ounce of her spiritual energy, didn't even bother replying. The cracks across her face and body grew wider and deeper, looking as if her skin might split apart at any moment. Still, she stood completely still. The soldiers fleeing with their captain heard the god's mocking words and began to waver. "Captain, are we really powerless against that god? Why do you think you're running with me without even knowing what you're running from?" He shot back. Shaoling's about to use a finishing move. He threw those words over his shoulder and kept running. He didn't look back. But that beautiful form, standing in the inferno, once seen, would never be forgotten. "I've seen her like this before," he said. "We were on a mission in the western region when we suddenly ran into a beast tide. Our squad was nearly wiped out. The beasts in that tide were grotesque, looking like deer, with sleek white fur, but exuding a deadly aura. They were especially large and bloodthirsty. At the time, the captain had been one of the last survivors, and when he locked eyes with one of the creatures, he had already mentally prepared for death. Besides him, there had been one other person from their squad still standing. In that moment of paralyzing fear, when his large frame froze in place, the one who stepped forward was a young girl. Shaoling, though she bore wounds of all sizes, her eyes as she stared at the monster were not the eyes of someone who had given up hope. They were the eyes of someone planning to fight back. When he saw that look in her eyes, he couldn't even explain how he survived. "I don't know how she beat it," he admitted. "All I remember is that she looked exactly the same as now, surrounded by an unnatural fire." She vanished into the inferno. When she reappeared, the flames had devoured the beast entirely, its fur and flesh gone. Only a white skeleton remained, and there stood the small figure of Shaoling, balanced atop its skull, proud and calm. That mission had been a long time ago, back when Shaoling was still hidden among the rank 3 superhumans. Now, looking at the cracks on her skin, it was clear things had changed. "She used that form even back then," he continued, "but as a rank 3 superhuman. She still managed to defeat a rank 4 beast. It was the first time I ever saw something so terrifying, so I didn't even think to run like I did now. In the end, I was badly burned by her flames and spent a year in the hospital. When Shaoling goes all out, there's no telling friend from foe. Her wide-range attack is brutal, even transforming her own skin in the process. There's no way to protect allies nearby. That's why he ran, dragging the whole squad with him. He summed it up in one line: you absolutely cannot be near her, or you'll die. Shaoling's full power attack took time to charge, which gave the superhumans enough time to retreat. Meanwhile, the beasts, abandoned by their enemies, quickly turned their focus on Shaoling. A dragon surged forward from behind the god of birth and nourishment to attack her. It didn't resemble the usual beasts. It looked just like the dragons from Dragon Isle, clearly. This dragon had betrayed Dragon Isle and joined the ranks of the mutants, so there was no need to hold back. The fire at her feet coiled like a spring, its tip lashing out like a whip. As the dragon opened its mouth to bite, the flames burst from her hand and sliced cleanly through its massive head. The beast flew past her, carrying its severed neck, its blood spraying above Shaoling, who didn't even spare it a glance. It happened so fast. The god had barely taken a breath before his subordinate's head went flying. Suddenly, two massive beasts appeared behind her, a dragon and a fierce centipede. Their appearance suggested they were about to devour Shaoling, yet they obediently stood beside her within the sea of flames, completely unharmed. What the hell was that? A dragon and a centipede. As a duo? The god of birth and nourishment only needed a moment to figure it out, and when he did, he burst into loud laughter. No wonder, so that's the reason for your strength, huh? I'm the same way. He barely finished speaking before the dragon and centipede lunged at him, mouths wide open. Both beasts spit down on him at once. Did anyone notice they weren't just spirit forms, but had the full physical form of actual mutant beasts? Their ferocious speed and power quickly punched holes through the god of birth and nourishment's body. Though his face still looked calm, that attack definitely rattled him. His very soul had nearly taken damage. Like other gods, he was focused on protecting the core hidden beneath his massive form. The dragon opened its jaws and blasted a huge column of spiritual energy. Right beside it, the centipede mirrored the action. Two equally powerful beams of spiritual energy shot from both sides, crashing into the god's body. It was a direct hit, or so it seemed, but when the dust settled, it wasn't him who had taken the blow, but something else. A massive turtle-like beast had used its shell to absorb the full impact. How did a turtle get there so fast? Turned out the god of birth and nourishment had somehow summoned it in time to act as a shield, while the turtle's defense seemed solid. In truth, the god was panicking. His greatest weakness was mobility. He could only rely on freshly spawned creatures to block attacks. That's what the god of birth and nourishment title really meant. He could generate mutant beasts tailored to whatever situation he faced. This time, a turtle with top-tier defense. Suddenly, a flash of light shot in like a stray bullet from behind. Shaoling, slim, swift, and precise, twisted her body just a short distance from the god and swung her arm forward. The flame in her palm shot out like an arrow from a bow, blazing directly toward the god. In the same motion, she thrust out her other hand, launching a second flame, just as fast, slamming toward him from the front, almost splitting his smug face in two. He dodged the first strike, but the second came too quickly. It slammed into the area between his shoulder and neck, slicing cleanly through. The attack blew away the entire left half of his upper body, while the fire continued upward into the sky, its speed undiminished. The explosion was so loud, it made Long Ting Wei, who was still running, instinctively turn his head in alarm. What he saw looked like beams of sunlight piercing through dark clouds, beautiful, yet unmistakably deadly. The buildings that had been scorched black earlier now reflected the strange glow in haunting ways. Shaoling's skin was no longer burning, but the radiant beams still poured down from the sky without pause. It didn't even look like she had done anything. The light just kept descending endlessly. The ground below shook violently. When they looked back up at the sky, a curtain of light had unfolded from the gray-black clouds above. It was breathtaking, but the destructive force was terrifying. The earth below split into two halves, like a chasm opening to swallow the world.